Welcome and good evening to Adventures in DeFi Kingdoms. This is Raph streaming to you live high above the keep in the hot air balloon. Tonight, as always, I have Neindorf with me. Neindorf, how you doing?
Oh, I'm excited. We're gonna have a good one here tonight.
We're going to have a great one here tonight, and we have a very special guest on again. Last time he was on with us, I believe it was in the middle of May, and boy, oh boy, has the game changed since then. Hubert, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me back. And yeah, things really have changed a lot.
It's been absolutely too much. I tried making a list initially of like all these things have changed since May, and I'm like, I give up. It's been a lot. So let's have some fun. Um, Neindorf, the first thing that I want to talk about before we jump into questions for Hubert, you've been working on some development in game and working on some statistic analysis. I'll bring this up first. It's a graph, a box and whisker chart. So, what do boxes and whiskers have to do with DFK outside of cats?
Yeah, so as we've kind of noticed, as people are getting more into boar hunting and finding these sleeper heroes, I'll say, perhaps on the tavern or maybe even in your own, hero army, if you will. It's kind of hard to see, how does your hero rank up to the other heroes? So basically, what I did is I kind of inventoried all of the alive heroes out there, and I'll probably keep re-inventorying them on some cadence. And I've got that data in a database, and then effectively, what you're seeing here is the stats on the top are. I think this is a level 17 PJ Warrior I have, and then
That's right.
you can kind of compare that hero's stats to the other population of level 17 warriors that are alive and say, hey, how do his stats, rank in that population of heroes? And so, it's kind of it's a standard box and whisker. There's the quartiles, and we can get into that math. But long story short, the higher the X, the better.
Yeah, because that X is your hero compared to the rest of the population. So, um,
Exactly.
you're better than the stats question out there by Dags. I don't know if it was in jest or in seriousness. Is that the median or the mean? That is the mean. Um,
That's right.
but the top and the bottom of the boxes have to do with the total percentile of heroes. So a little closer to, you're looking at um, all heroes above that bottom of the box. That is 25% of the heroes, and then the top of the box is 75% of the heroes fall into those. So that gives you your box range. It's fascinating to me, and Hubert, I'd love to get your comment on this. Um, look at the range on decks. Like, there are a lot of people who are focusing it and some people that are not focusing it. And I guess we should also preface that this is level, so that when we're doing our calculations, we're doing it by class and then by level. And so level 17 warriors, there's probably not that many out there. So it's, I guess, not surprising that there's a high variation between the heroes, but that's interesting that some people are focusing on dexterity and some people aren't.
Yeah, I look at this one and it's like, uh-oh, on that dex on that hero.
So
but
it's funny though. I use this warrior all the time in boar hunting with a level 3 knight and a level 10 priest, and I pretty much win every time. And he doesn't miss all that often. So I feel like that 20 some dex is not actually hurting me. So,
yeah,
that's kind of the interesting part about this, right?
well, yeah, I mean, even though they're level 17, they're still using the level 10 gear, which has I think the sword is like somewhere, 15 or 13 dex requirement on it. So, yeah, he's going to have high accuracy, but, could have even higher accuracy if his dex was higher. But, when it
Hmm.
comes to like a level 20 weapon, he's going to have a hard time with the
Yeah.
accuracy,
Right.
I think. So,
So that tells me maybe I should, instead of focusing on endurance and vitality, which seem to be growing nicely,
that
maybe
seems pretty good, yeah.
put a dex crystal on this guy next time.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, it was kind of hard to communicate before we had combat out. Like, I was trying to just warn people that, dexterity is the accuracy stat, dexterity is the accuracy stat. But You know,
Mm-hmm.
until we actually had combat out, like people couldn't really know what that exactly meant.
Yeah.
So now you know, now you see.
Your
Right.
your hero hits hard and he's built like a truck. That
Yeah.
vitality. I mean, you are. It looks like you're setting the bar there, or if
I
not
think
setting the
he's.
bar, he's a
I
couple
want to
on
say he's
one
about
under.
1200 HP, something like that.
That's
Yeah, you
that's
need some
legit.
HP and MP bars as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be
That's
at.
next. Yeah, I haven't developed that, but that is absolutely coming next, and it'll be right next to these. I got to put it next to him because the scales are so wonky that you can't put them on the same chart.
Right.
Right.
So yep, absolutely, that's coming for sure.
So that's exciting, and that is going to be. We're gonna stick with our kind of the theme of the ADFK website, where all in-game data that's out there that we're making more easily accessible. That's just your base data. That's free of charge. But data that requires some real scouring and requires some synthesis, analysis, and like the statistics behind it. This data included will be part of our subscribers benefits out there. So just to clear things up, I know Dag said that question on there, um, and that's a subscriber feature to the ADFK website. Subscribe now before Jewel gets too expensive.
There you go.
All right, so let's go to the airdrops. That's a new feature that we're working on that will partner with both DFK and ADFK, the arcade adventure. Walk us through this one, Neindorf.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, excuse me. We wanted to be able to um, reward our players in a way that we felt, made it seem like an achievement, and so we had a random question to Zipper in our chat one day, and I was like, "Hey, could we use the airdrop system?" And then it was pretty hilarious. He's like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And he's like, "Let me go ask Fox." And then he's like, in about 10 minutes later, Fox is like, "Yeah, I already did that thing." And it was like no way. And over the course of the next week, they deployed it, tested it, got us whitelisted. And so yeah, now we can drop loot to our players using the airdrop system. So then, what we were struggling with um, in the gold raffle for sure is, once we transfer something to someone as they're a winner, it just kind of gets lost in their inventory, and it wasn't exciting, I'll say. But now the next time the winner logs in, they'll be able to see that there's that awesome airdrop icon, and then we get to put a little note there that says, hey, have some ADFK arcade loot. We can type our message in there, and we'll probably put like what dungeon you did, similar to what you guys, Hubert, have done when you get a weapon, like who dropped it, so to speak.
Yeah,
Right.
that'll help with the just seeing what's happening and what's going on with your wallet. I for one have been in item accumulation mode, and with that, let's segue into to questing and earning items. And so, last time we had a conversation, Hubert, we talked a lot about the purpose of travel. I want to dive into expeditions now. They're not travel,
Okay.
so how are they different? And then kind of walk us through the logistics of expeditions. You start a quest, a hero goes out. What's going on with that hero? Do we have access to them? Are they consuming stamina? Walk us through some of the logistics and information on, how is an expedition different than travel?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the lore of expeditions is essentially you are sending your heroes out on like an expedition. There are wagons involved. They're going and farming, gardening over in this location somewhere in the distance. Who knows where exactly? But that's kind of the lore behind it, rather than it being like an immediate location that's like right here in the profession zone. They're not fishing in that little pond right there. They're going out and finding other ponds.
Excellent.
Um, so I mean that's just kind of the general gist of it. Like as far as like how it functionally works, it's very close to questing in that you're submitting your heroes to start the quest. That would put them in a questing state, which means they can't be transferred and all the other things that you're prevented from doing when you're in the questing state. All of that applies. But beyond that point, once the quest is started, a part of like starting the quest also involves like there's some forward inputs that you have to provide, like how long do you want to do this for? You have to escrow the fee associated with it in advance, so that kind of just gets processed and can be verified to be present. But so say you're like, okay, I'm going to do this for a week. Then for a week of expeditions, anytime during that time, you can come in and be like, I want to check up on these guys. I'm going to claim the rewards. The contract will go through and figure out how many cycles of quests have progressed since the point where you started, and process that many rewards for those heroes, give them experience and everything else, and then keep them in the quest. It doesn't take them out. It doesn't necessarily update anything in the hero directly at that moment. It just kind of progresses time within the contract, and lets you come back later to claim again in the future. So what that lets us do by having it keep things in place is on the contract level, some of the heaviest like gas components of it are like communicating with other contracts and reading storage data and writing storage data. And just kind of necessarily with how the ecosystem is designed, with the heroes being on their own NFT contract and quests being separate contracts, and all these other different things. We have also like extra flags that are tracked and power-ups, and so many different things that are different contracts that we have to check every time. That those things do drive up quite a lot of gas, and we have to check for every single hero. How we're designing this is we kind of save the state that you have initially. We have safeguards in place so that if you do something to like change the state, it's going to cancel up to that point. So that like for example, if you have the experience power up, quick study power up on your heroes, and then you go and cancel that power up while while they're doing expeditions, we're going to set it up so that that's essentially going to set a flag that's going to end that expedition at that moment, because then after that moment our data is no longer valid. But by being able to just save the entire state of the heroes and everything, we just have one location of storage that we have to deal with. We can set it up so that the amount of external contracts we have to talk to like during processing is close to zero, which means that all of our gas is dedicated to just doing logic and math, which is the cheapest part of a transaction. So that should give us the ability to process way more stamina per transaction than we could do before, and also have it kind of set up in a way where you can have your heroes kind of ongoing doing this without you needing to take a lot of extra steps, and you could wait that whole week and just claim at the very end if you wanted to.
So do your heroes need stamina in order to start that quest, and then is it fully consumed when they end the expedition?
So we're setting it up actually so that they don't necessarily need to be at full stamina when they start, but the way that it works is it will always, like, it processes up to where the slowest stamina recovering hero is at full stamina, and then
Okay.
that is where the iteration starts. And then it does however many, like if you did 5 attempts of fishing, it would be okay, 5 attempts of fishing takes this much time, and then this much time would accrue to get back to full stamina on that slowest hero, and then another 5 attempts. So it just uses time that way. But when you end an expedition, you can end early also. I guess, like right now, the way it works is, you have the stamina, you spend the stamina, you get your reward. The way this works is one iteration ends the moment the stamina of the slowest recovering hero reaches full. So by doing that, when you actually pull out your heroes, they will always be at full stamina. But
Okay.
you might end up, like, if you pull them out halfway through, they're just not going to be able to do any of that last iteration. It'll just be canceled, basically.
Got it.
But
So you're going out in groups then. What's the group size on an expedition?
We're keeping it the same as how it's set up with normal quests. So 6 for most things, except for gardening. Gardening will still be 2. Um, but you like for fishing and foraging, there are no limits to how many you do, and they also do not. They're not queued behind each other. They're individually instanced. So you don't really need to worry about things getting jammed up that way.
Okay. All right. Now, can you use the portal while you're expeditioning?
If you can with questing, and I can't remember off the top of my head if you
Yes.
can or not, then yes, unless we change it. It's that's not a new restriction we're throwing
Okay.
in at the moment.
I'm advocating for that to be a restriction. I for one here. All in favor say aye. All right, motion passed. um, okay, so what about leveling up? How do you do that if you are accumulating a whole? Because that you can't do while you're questing. So
Right.
then you would have to pull your heroes out of the expedition, do the level up, and then go again. Is that right?
That would be one way of doing it. We do have add-ons planned for the expeditions that may or may not include something with leveling up. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I guess I'll wait before saying too much about that. So, I feel like I said too much already.
Oh, this is great. We're getting the alpha already. We're only 19 minutes in. Um, so let's keep kind of going down add-ons to expeditions. Are expeditions going to require power-ups, like the Sigil or the Estral?
Yes, yeah. So there will be a base power up to just be able to do expeditions, and that is similar to like the quick study power up and others in that you have to assign the heroes that are eligible to it.
Okay.
I will note that it is much as far as like the amount required to stake for the number of for a hero. It's a significantly smaller amount than the other power ups that are on a like per hero basis. But I won't be saying the numbers right now.
Well, I mean,
Oh yeah.
even just the general magnitude is appreciated. When you guys
Yeah.
have looked at expeditions, botting is it's a blessing in many ways for the number of transactions going on, and for a lot of people, huge quality of life. How do you see this kind of like pairing with bots? Are you kind of bot agnostic, Hubert? We haven't really asked you a lot about this before. Do you see this like, well, the bots will just figure out a way to leverage expeditions, but so will users, and it makes the playing field more even? Like, how are you thinking about it when it comes to, kind of botting quests in the game?
Yeah, so I probably lean in the less pro bot crowd in general. Just that's kind of my preferences. I want people to play the game, not just have something be going passively. But I also understand that profession quests are tedious to do right now, and so I can understand why people, especially those that have a ton of heroes, would want to still be able to have their heroes questing and do all those things without needing to spend several hours to make it all work. So that message is definitely understood, and this, our effort with expeditions has been one partially to help alleviate that in kind of setting it up in a way where, you don't really have to wait for your stamina to be full to put your heroes in. It'll just, it'll wait until they're at full stamina before it starts, but you can still like, at the time that you're doing things, you're not like as limited by waiting for things.
Mm-hmm.
And also, not being required to like complete and start and complete and start and complete and start. Kind of setting it up in that way where really expeditions will be more efficient than a bot could possibly achieve as far as like maximizing the use of stamina. Um, but there's still the process of if you do have more heroes you want to add, or if you just even going into claim, there's still going to be those transactions to claim. So I could still see people using bots to handle that if they wanted to, but I do think we're making it our goal is to make it way more manageable for someone who doesn't use bots to not feel like they have to use a bot to stay competitive.
I think that's really fair. And I mean, don't underestimate how lazy the community is. At least myself speaking here, I will be asking Neindorf because he's built a bot for the two of us. I need now a bot to send my heroes on expeditions because I'm maximal lazy. Like that is where I'm at in the game. Okay, so I want to go to power up kind of in some more configurations with expeditions, and Dags is asking, how does pet feeding work with expeditions?
So, as I mentioned before, we do have add-ons that we're planning on.
Okay, all right.
But assuming it's just you just have the base power up, it would, if you had the duration of your expedition go beyond when your pets were hungry, then you would eventually reach a point where you would stop receiving the pet bonus.
Okay.
So like at the base level, if you're just doing expeditions without any add-ons, there would still be, an expectation of you, once every 4 days or every 12 days or however you have whatever pet food you're using and whatever, if you have uh, the premium provisions power up, like depending on all that, there would still be a need for you to come back and feed your pets during that time if you don't have certain add-ons.
Well, Neindorf, we've been, regular treat maxis because there's really been no advantage to using the premium ones. This kind of flips it a little bit, where you can more effectively use the expedition tool if you're using the premium treats. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think the reason regular treats make sense is just because the map prices have been, depressed, right?
Right.
But I think the other thing is I think we'll see that come around once we get some potions in play, that if those map prices drive up, the actual bonus time you get from that premium treat starts to make a little bit more sense. Plus, then if it gets magnified with the power up and gets magnified with expeditions, I mean, we might be really cooking then.
Hmm. Foreshadowing to a potion conversation later in the evening.
Oh, did I do
Don't
that?
like that 2%. There is an XP bonus for using the premium treats. You don't care for that?
Well, I
Uh,
guess,
Doesn't.
yeah.
so many of my heroes are level 10 capped at this point that
Yeah, that's right.
I
The
see.
Moksha rune capped.
Moksha cap, yeah.
Moksha capped.
Can't afford those things.
I like Mokshas being premium items. Like there's like something that my heroes are still earning that's worth real world dollars right now, and obviously that'll change, and probably every new 10 level cap is introduced, I hope it's kind of the same way, where you can kind of grind that next level rune as a bit of a profit item.
Right. Yeah, I would say in general, I would expect us to continue to have, future runes being rare. Though, yeah, we do still have, more plans, kind of waiting to come to fruition for, I guess, access to runes. So
Okay.
I'll just say that.
Ooh, interesting. All right, so Neindorf, you were talking about how in duels recently, we're still in the questing conversation here. So in duels recently, they've introduced, well, this is questing and lots of reckless speculation now, departing from reality and going to reckless speculation. You've talked about the feature of champions, or shall we call it King of the Hill. Hubert, have you thought about King of the Hill being based on an actual land in game, and like the purpose of land maybe still tied to ownership, maybe not tied to ownership, but King of the Hill on an in-game asset? Thoughts there?
Hmm. That is interesting. I'm not sure it would work well with lands just off the top of my head, but there could be other type of King of the Hill mechanics that deal with traveling and the world at large per se, that we could maybe do. With lands, there's so much that we have planned for that, with it being kind of a functional piece of like the whole game economy, that I worry about doing too many things on top of everything we already want to do, just associated with that. So Maybe not.
Recklessly speculate here.
Yeah. Okay, so functional piece of the game economy. That's a powerful statement. Um,
That's some alpha, I feel like.
that's some alpha. So, we've already kind of generally know that lands will allow you to do some travel features. I think that, we talked about mounts perhaps being rentable and that allows people to move through your land faster. Any other thoughts, Hubert, on what are, and it doesn't have to necessarily be like this is for sure in the roadmap, but what are some of the features that, like you're saying, it's a part of the game economy. um, what does that mean to you, and how do you see that potentially being manifested? Is that where we're leveraging the crafting traits that heroes have?
Yeah, that would be a piece of it. I mean, I'll be careful about, just saying that we are still very early in the design of lands. There's a lot of general path like plans that we have for it, but when we actually get to when we're like really developing it, that will be, the time where things could change quite a bit. So I guess just take what I say with a grain of salt, but the general idea that I have had for lands is that you for traveling is going to take a decent amount of time. Once we have that system out, what I'd eventually like to have is kind of timed events where something might happen, a specific monster might show up for a brief period of time, a place might, a certain region may become under attack and need to be defended, and people don't have enough heroes at that location to be able to do anything there. Traveling on foot might not get them there in time, but if they were to, rent some horses from the local landowner, they may be able to make it. So I guess that's kind of, when it comes to just mounts and traveling, I think that's one piece. But then when it comes to crafting as well, the general plan has been to have that be also tied to land. Like you have to have tools of the trade to be able to actually do the crafting, and those tools would be something that requires like a whole town around it and everything else. So that's where it kind of creates a situation where landowners would need to have the right buildings for crafting people to use to be able to craft, and kind of creating a diversity of buildings amongst landowners, and you might need to go to specific places to do specific things depending on what's getting built by who, and what they're charging to use their facilities, kind of thing. So that's just kind of a general taste of it. I
Love
think
that.
there's a lot that we're going to be adding to it as we go, and I think there's already, besides just crafting and mounts, there's a bunch of other things that we've discussed, but I'll just leave it at that for now.
And I believe, I can't remember if it's you that said this comment or Fox in a podcast or an AMA, but not all lands can't do all buildings, right? So that there is a total amount of things that you can do on it, which forces some of that diversity amongst landowners. Am I recalling that properly?
That is the plan, yeah,
Yeah.
to kind of force the diversity, and where maybe if everyone's going heavy on blacksmithing stuff and nobody has enchanting stuff except for this one place, they could probably charge a premium, for using their facilities since there's no other options.
That is awesome. So I want to go back to like monsters attacking a region at Neindorf. Here's what I'm imagining is that there is like this dragon or Highlands whelp army attacking a region of land, and I could even see there being like almost like in a way, how garden rewards, you get more if you're staking more in the garden. Like, could you potentially earn more, do you think, Neindorf? Like, if you had 10 of the 100 heroes that went to that battle, what do you think there? Like, that could be a really
Yeah.
neat way to, gamify the rewards. It's like, how many people are you sending, and what percent of the rewards do you receive?
Yeah, I mean that's right. It's like it's a proportional reward system, right? Where, if it takes, and this kind of goes back to the idea you had originally about, remember, you came up with this cool idea where once land utility came out, maybe first everybody has to clear their land, right?
Uh huh.
And there's this, and you need like, I don't know, 8,000 hero hours
Right.
or of time spent to clear the land, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think it'd be very similar to that.
That oh, can't wait. This is going to be so much fun. Um, and I'm not just saying that because we're landowners, but because I feel like then we're really getting into a decision economy too. Like it's not just like the functional economy, but you have to make choices based on like how you want to play the game. And it's like, do you want to go after like just crafting? And you need to spread your resources between like if I want to make a super mythic sword with all these gems inside of it, well, I need to go probably need to craft it somewhere first at a blacksmith, and then I need to go enchant it somewhere else, and maybe I need to go capture the raw materials from a dungeon, and all of these things. It's like you have to like build out a map of how you're going to go do something, and we're in the Web3 space, and that's something that you can go sell or you can use to beat up on everyone else. Um, how much
Well,
of the
and
development? Oh yeah,
you're describing like the journey being part of the quest, right? Like,
yeah,
it's kind of like the old saying when you're going on a vacation, right? Half the fun is getting there.
yeah, yeah.
I think
So
that could hold true here too, for sure.
how much do you guys think about this is an opportunity to really lean into Web3, Hubert? Like, this was not, well, it was kind of possible in Web2, none of those things were assets. And so, like, those, well, people found ways to trade them and sell them. I mean, this is a vibrant, living decks underneath the game. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I think it does drive behavior, I think, a lot more strongly that it is, that what you're receiving are actual assets that you could potentially sell. I think that gives us, and as far as like if we want to have a certain kind of behavior, we want to make sure people are traveling to different places and whatnot. I think we can achieve a fun and interesting game world that's always changing, that people at any time in the day they can look at what's going on and see there might be an event going on, or they're just trying to build that epic sword that you mentioned, and are just working through what they need to do that. They may need a bunch of heroes that are just mining for the ore that you need for the metal, and then that maybe that ore is only available if you're mining over in the corner over there, or that mine goes dry, so you got to go find a different one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. The goal is to create, a need to make, a lot of different choice available for players, and a need to diversify, and also accept that you probably just one person won't be able to do all of it with what you have, and will sometimes need to rely on other players to, fill some of the gaps for you. So that while maybe you could do it all yourself, it may just take so much time that you won't think it's worth it anymore. And so that time-based economy does I guess create value for other players to be able to you know get out of the system through
Yeah.
that. So yeah,
Other players are often called guilds out there in
yes,
the world. All right, so
Oh,
one of the things that we talked about, I believe on, well, I say we, like I, like I feel like I've been, everyone who's been here through the bear market feels like this is a we now, more so than a you guys. So, not trying to steal any of the work that you're doing, Hubert. It's been described as boars, being more of like a boss battle. What does this mean for the future of combat? How will navigation, travel? We've talked about this a little bit, but how will that be integrated together? Like, do you see like dungeons in the future, or people going to a place on the map to fight a weaker guy, and then going to a different place and fighting a slightly stronger guy? And sometimes they fight, maybe it's Smog the dragon on that special mine that's about ready to run out of the ore that I need for my fire sword of fire or my sword of truth. Like, how how are you planning on kind of like combat evolving as questing also evolves?
yeah. So first, say definitely, I would like us to have dungeons eventually. I think they will be one of the later PvE things that we do, though. Right now with void hunts, those being more like a boss fight, the next stage of combat would be, or like PvE combat anyway, would be Yeah, like you said, a more like easy fight. Go fight some blubs, go fight other things where the stakes aren't as high, the rewards aren't as high, uh, but also hope like with a desire to kind of set it up in a way where it can be a bit more of an adventure, where where it's more of like having an endurance style uh, set of battles, and not just
Hmm.
one fight, but you could decide to keep fighting or go back to town, and like you're kind of you'd have the same amount of potions that you brought to the quest with you during the whole thing. So you'd be battling against your resources and against whatever enemies you ended up coming up against, but trying to set up something where it is more of an endurance type of setup where generally enemies would die after just a few hits, um, but they might get a few good swings in that are just kind of wearing you down as you go.
All right, so I was listening to the Sticks intern at Workhorse stream just before this, and Workhorse told us to ask about mana regen in battle. Like, if it's a battle of an endurance, is this something that you guys have thought about?
Definitely, yeah. I know the mana regeneration topic is a fun one because I have put my foot down pretty hard on not letting mana be regenerated very easily. Having it be something where generally we want just for the purposes of this game to like work as an economy. Um, you know, right now with Void Hunts we do have the free potions available, but that's not going to last for much longer. And once we do switch it over to where every resource you're using in battle is something that you own, um, like it would be I guess for embracing that as that's what the gameplay is. Having too much mana regeneration in the game kind of is counter to, I guess, kind of generating that value within your items if you don't actually need to use mana potions because you can just, you know, do this fight and then you're going to fully regenerate your mana and then you just do the next fight and you don't need to worry about it. Like
Yeah.
it's counter to the whole idea of, your heroes are living in this world, what they do impacts them and you have to, deal with the consequences of that. So that's kind of the feel that I'm going for with this, and why mana regeneration has been something that's you don't see it right now with the
Right.
heroes
I love that.
right now.
Here's a
Yeah.
here's a curveball. What about mana transfer?
Ooh.
Man, yeah, maybe. I mean,
Okay. All
there
right.
we have we've done a few things where it's like the next skill costs half mana or is like free or something where we grant, I guess, quote unquote free mana, but not like permanent mana in a way. So there's some degree of that already, I think, built into. I think Scholar had some of that, and Seer also did. Um, so we
Uh,
have a little bit.
I'm envisioning my jobber army all being zero mana as I have transferred it all to my fighting guild.
Mhm.
Well,
Uh,
Right.
maybe there's also a splitting the difference, Neindorf, like some of the kind of the ideas we've implemented in our arcade style game. Like, what if instead of regenning in battle, maybe if it's still a battle of endurance, you regenerate a little bit based on your stats between battles. Like when we have our rest feature, Neindorf, there is a cost to the rest feature, and that we are wanting heroes to race through our dungeons, and they earn rewards based on total number of turns. But we also allow people to rest, and then they can earn based on their vitality for their health right now. But maybe you could regen mana between turns with some kind of rest feature that has a trade off. While I love the potions, and don't get me wrong, I love the tie to the in game economy. Maybe there's kind of a hybrid approach that could be there.
Yeah, there could be. And if we do something where you're going through waves of combat, there could be times in between those waves, perhaps for something like that, rather than it being just within combat.
Hmm.
I guess if it were in combat, then what I would see people doing is, they get to the last enemy, they do their best to debilitate it as much as they can, and then they just sit there and rest and rest and rest and rest and get all their MP back, and then they're all the way ready for the next fight. And that is not, I don't want that. I don't want that to be what
Right.
people do.
Right.
So,
But you hit on something that I think I've been curious about too. As we developed our arcade game, we kind of had like, what is the game flow? Like we have kind of two phases, right? We've got adventuring more or less, where you're deciding if I want to take the left path, the right path, if I want to rest, do I want to do, do I want to search this room to try to find something, or you're actually in what we call an encounter where you're in combat. I mean, is that kind of how you foresee your future dungeons playing out? Like, is there an exploration mode and then a combat mode?
for dungeons, I hope that is kind of how we would set it up. For earlier PvE, for other waves of combat, I think it would be, more simplified than that. But yes, in general, I do like the idea of like fight, decide what to do next, fight, decide what to do next, and then just kind of, having a check-in with the player to be like, okay, how do you feel? You're gonna push it, or are you done? So that's kind of,
Perfect.
yeah.
Like, here's what I'm advocating for Nindorf now. Our avatar forever has been the hot air balloon. Is that I want to build a hot air balloon. We'll call it a resupply launching pad on our land. And what we'll do for a price is that we will drop potions to people out in battle, but they have to pay a premium the farther away that they are on the map and the farther they are into a dungeon. And so we'll accept bags of gold thrown up to us, or bags of jewel, and we'll throw potions down to them.
So you're saying our delivery system is the hot air balloon now. That's
Hey, there we go. Yeah, I love
uh,
it. Well, it is now that she got the airdrop system online.
all right, fair. We're driving that theme home, aren't we?
Yeah. All right. So yeah, that was reckless speculation there, obviously.
Of course.
So let's jump into potion talk. We're kind of there already. Next phase is going to be bring your own potion. Awesome. Can't wait for the tokenomics improvement. It sounded like it was more than just HP and mana potions that are opening up. Care to elaborate on what else we should expect? Will the next enemies cast blindness? That's my question for you, Hubert.
I will refrain from commenting on that last one, but I will say that the goal that we have with this next Void Hunt is for all of the potions to be available when it comes out. So that would,
Wow.
everything that
Wow.
exists now as being usable in combat. Some of it might not be very useful. If those, specifically thinking about the anti-blinding and anti-poison potions, if like neither of those would help you with the boar fight, right? You don't
Right.
get poisoned or blinded. It'll be situational, but I think we're also trying to set them up to be very, valuable to the player, as far as like, maybe you're saving all of your potions just for your mana, but maybe you want to, like, that there's this big attack coming, or you just want to amp your tank up real good. You can take the toughness potion, just so you're preventing a whole bunch of damage that way. Or if you just want to get a big burst of attack out, you take the swiftness potion, and then you have like a super fast hero
Yeah.
for a little bit. So,
Or if
um,
you have a warrior that's 17 and has like no agility.
right, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so I think that's going to open up a pretty interesting dynamic. We are making the potions, like if you recall, we did explain this. I don't know if you guys looked at it or not, but for anyone that has been following our development of the classes and whatnot, when we released Thief, we kind of talked about the potion system, that we were like how we wanted it to work,
Yeah.
with there being a battle budget and a battle inventory. Meaning that you don't have access to every single potion that your wallet has. Yeah, every given battle would have a specific amount of weight that you can take into the battle as far as like potions. So say it's like when we're using the units of stone for this. So I'm gonna stick with that lore. So say it's 30 stone worth of potion, and a health potion might cost 3 stone or weigh 3 stone, but a swiftness might cost like 10 or 9. So like to bring those with you, you do kind of have to, I guess, take that cost of you can't
Yeah.
bring as much of other things with you. And then within battle too, there's going to be a limit. Like right now with the boar fight, you can do 3 potions. That would be, when we convert to battle budget, that might be a budget of 10
Mm.
available.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't use more than 10. And the thief has some abilities that, like in PvP, where you could actually just be taking away your opponent's battle budget. So before they can use potions, they suddenly don't have enough left over to even be able to use the potions that they wanted to use.
And with that particular thief mechanic, correct me if I'm wrong, since we're on it right now. You take away their battle budget, but you gain battle budget, right? So you could. It's not stealing a potion, but you could use one of your own potions if you stole enough battle budget points, right?
That's true, yeah.
Okay,
You
cool.
give yourself more options. So, yep.
All right. Wow. Will potion crafting or advanced potion crafting be part of the hero skills in the future?
I am leaning in that direction, to where once we do have crafting out, potentially just retiring the current alchemist at that point.
All right.
And then it would be, alchemy based heroes would be in charge of crafting potions at that point.
I love
Um,
it.
so that's a goal. I wouldn't sit, don't take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, because again, that's crafting requires land functionality, which both of those things require traveling. So there's a bunch of stuff before like we really put our heads down and like really focus on those things, and things could change. So,
Yeah,
but yeah.
I can't can't wait for that because Neindorf, I know you've been a investor, and I also I should caveat I need to get like an image that can pop up on screen, and it's just Bolon saying "Don't ape into broken mechanics." And I thought of this after like the most beautiful Sticks intern Twitter post that he had, where it was Bolon saying "Don't ape into broken mechanics," and then I think it was Sticks intern underneath the covers crying after listening to a Wowie stream because he aped into broken mechanics. And I just absolutely love that balance.
Uh,
You've been looking at investing in heroes with the crafting professions in mind. I mean, that's got to jazz you up hearing that.
it does, and I would say, as the excitement over crafting genes has kind of waned a little bit, so people are not really paying a premium for that quite like they used to be. So, listen, not financial advice, but I'm definitely still holding, some crafting heroes, no doubt. I'm trying to get more diversity, and too, I think it's just another. I would say that we are maybe hoarders is the term I'm looking for with heroes at this point. Looking for new reasons to collect heroes all the time, and so that was a huge phase of my addiction to heroes.
I love it. All right, so I think that covers all my questions on potions for now. Really excited about this. Thank you for sharing, Hubert. That was more information than I think we had previously. So really neat there. Let's talk about more things that heroes can bring into battle. Equipment. We now have equipment. This is awesome. Since the last time we spoke, we have level 10 equipment, and there's level equip, and then so there is a. I'll bring this up on screen here. An equipment spreadsheet. And this is a spreadsheet that Zipper shared this with us. I believe this has been shared on Discord in main. You can see all the parameters of the current guild weapons, guild armor, and these are the weapons that you are. Would you call them kind of borrowing right now, Hubert?
Yeah, being you're technically, I guess, paying for them with as a part of the fee, but yeah,
Got it.
you have armor that is definitely not the armor that your heroes start with at level 1. So
Okay, that's good to know. Um, so when will equipment be the next equipment set be level 20, and will equipment levels go in like level groups of 10, or will there be more diversity inside there? Like I could find a level 14 spell book, but I could find a level 25 great axe.
Yeah, so I think our goal is to have more diversity in terms of like what the target levels are for things. Right now, just with our state of development, we do have, the combat engine is limited. It has a specific, a specific. Well, there's a bunch of different things that aren't working yet, right? So with us kind of focusing on level 10, it's really just working with what we have within available within the ecosystem to kind of be our focus level for players. So like the next set of gear with the next Void Hunt is also kind of being targeted around level 10 as being the general area for it. I think down the road we might have some level 15 gear that may show up a little bit later.
Hmm.
But I think also one thing with like how the Void Hunt is set up right now and how the balance is set up with the level cap and everything is it's designed in with the idea that there is no level 15 gear in existence and there is no level 20 gear in existence, because if there was, the scaling is way off, and heroes at level 15 with level 15 gear would be able to stomp those boars pretty hard, with just the way we have to kind of have a progression of stats on these things. So right now, yeah, everything's kind of targeted around level 10. The next Void Hunt will continue that trend, but then when we get to the point of having other kind of PvE content, around that same time, I think we would want to have gear to kind of complement that. So our goal being to have fights that would be doable at like level 5 or even level 1 potentially.
Okay.
And you'd need gear to kind of progress up beyond that point, because the level 1 gear is not going to be like the base gear your heroes have is not gonna you wouldn't survive the boar hunt at all. And yeah, it just we need to have that kind of progression.
So yeah, I like that because that was always a question I had. So we're kind of in order to have an interesting first PvE in boar hunts here, you kind of jumped ahead a little bit to 10 to get us the player some ability to use some skills, right? Because if you started it at level 1, I mean it wouldn't be nearly as exciting. A lot of basic attacking, right? So I think that was always my question, was really, wow, these swords that we're winning right now can't be like awesome swords because this is the first PvE we've had, and if I'm not mistaken, we hope for this to be around for years and years to come, and you can't, you know, code yourself into a hole by releasing really awesome stuff right off the get-go. So I think that's a really cool play. You can actually go backwards and add gear back below these. I hadn't thought of that. That's cool.
Yep. And I mean, we already have art assets for gear that would be used for that point. It's just a matter of, designing it and implementing it and having something to use it for, because that gear also would not be as good as the gear that you're borrowing from the guild for these boar fights, and you would not have a good time using it with that. So like everything kind of needs to be timed. Like we if we have the gear, I want there to be a use for it. Unless it's just like these party hats or what, something that's just a for fun item. Um, like the general idea is hopefully we can have content to go along with the whatever items that we're
Yeah.
introducing to the economy. So yeah.
So, totally not selfish question. Hypothetically speaking, let's say someone has a Scully's Eye amulet, and do amulets and accessories, do they have levels to them? Do you see that item as a level 10 item as well? Or is that kind of indifferent of levels?
So those amulets are kind of special since they were like pre-promised things from the beginnings of DFK. So the level requirement on them is just being level 1. So uh, that's pretty nice. But future accessories and other things. I think even like the Charger's mask has a level 10 requirement on it. So uh, yeah, in general, we will have level requirements on everything except for weapons. Weapons instead use a strength requirement to know
Yeah.
if you can equip it or not.
Okay. I saw that, the last or maybe two patch notes ago, the dagger, the thief's weapon, was buffed. Why now? Are we looking at the thief as the next codex out?
More wild speculation. Well, the codex is out,
Or
but
the
as far as it
playability, yeah.
playability of it, the truth of it is it was one of the things we wanted to have, like one of the changes that we was on our list of changes as we were kind of just developing the boar hunt,
Mhm.
and it just kept getting pushed down to the bottom of the list because we didn't have skills for the thief at the time, and there were just other higher priorities to do besides that. So eventually it did, get uh, to the top of Beetle's list, and he was able to knock that out. But yeah, I wouldn't read into it too much.
Damn, I was thinking when thief.
Right.
Um, all right, so one of the things that the spreadsheet. Oh, and I see some people said they weren't aware of the spreadsheet, so I'm gonna go ahead and drop this in
I
chat.
really can't believe Wowie and Matty Pesk was not aware of that. Like,
Yeah.
um, I swear there were many times that I posted it. It was pinned in our thing,
Okay.
and I guess I just assumed I assumed that they would know because they tend to know
Oh,
everything.
I'm surprised. I found out about this, like, Nine North was like, "Hey, there was a spreadsheet that one time," and then we were asking Dr. Zipper about other things, and well, we'll get to the dynamic stats here in a moment. But yeah, he sent us this spreadsheet, and I was like, "Whoa, I've never seen this before." So yeah, it's I don't know, for some reason things get lost in Discord. One of the things I absolutely love is the scalar values. I feel like this gives you so much flexibility on how you end up, kind of making these weapons impactful in the future, and you can have up to three scalar stats. So this dagger's damage is determined in part by dexterity and in part by strength, right?
Yep.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. When we were building this, I really wanted it to be robust, and my goal is with how we set up the hero system with leveling up and how their stats work is making sure that we're building this in a way that stats matter. So this was kind of the solution we came up with for that, and having it be the base attack of a weapon may not be very high, like with the actual value you're getting out of your weapon is that, oh, this thing scales really high on dex and I have high dexterity, so in the hands of my hero this is a really strong weapon, but in the hands of Neindorf's warrior it's not that great.
Rubbing it in there. Yes, I love it. Throwing some shade at that warrior.
Yes.
That's good. That's good. All right, so there's an accuracy calculator, which I'll let Maddie and Wowie jump into that sometime. I really wanted to transition from then weapons to the stat S formula. It's something that's kind of relatively new for us. Is this something that you guys have been talking about in the background, or was it kind of relatively new for you guys as well, Hubert?
So yeah, that was me. I did this is my fault. I uh was just as we were doing the boar hunt, like it just there were too many issues with having things kind of just statically grow. And I was noticing also with like how we were setting up the growth in our skills, like it's like, oh, you have a 30% plus like 10% of your strength chance to do something. It just it it made it so like some skills just really don't really feel that great until we eventually we have level 100 available and they get to level 100, and then now this skill is super awesome, but at level 20 it sucked, or it didn't suck but just wasn't that great. So rather than doing that and recognizing that at any given level there are heroes that are better than other heroes in some stats, like to have that be pronounced where you can feel it in combat at if we're doing a level 10 event, then it should feel like the good level 10s are much better than the bad level 10s in terms of stats. So this was my attempt at making a whole like a per level score that your hero gets for every stat that it has, and it's based on just the stat growths of every hero every hero type that exists. It's kind of using the common like lowest strength possible hero versus like a mythic highest strength possible, always using all like might crystals every level kind of hero, and like trying to create a range where things make sense with that, so that it really feels like you have a very weak hero or you have a very strong hero within whatever you're doing. So
Is this formula something you anticipate having to tweak relatively often, or do you feel like it'll stay for a while and it'd be a big deal if you changed it?
I hope to not change this very often. If it does feel like one of them is off over time, then it could be adjusted. But in general, it was designed in a way that I think was very future proof. Like it looked at all the way up to level 100, and the nuances of how much stats a given hero could potentially ever achieve, and trying to set a range for this in that way. And then it's up to us to kind of like with how we use these in our formulas, where we say, okay, this is like 3 times strength score. Like for us, what that means is, okay, if this is for a warrior, we know that in general their strength score is going to be between like 5 and 7, unless they're crazy. And so if we do 3 times, then that means we want an average of about 15 improvement, but they could be as much as 30 or even more if they like really push their strength, for example. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think I was just curious because, I think this is something that you're going to see other people suck in and try to build into their tools. I know that's our plan. And that's just kind of a curiosity if that's something that we need to monitor as the community if we're going to build tools around it. But yeah, I looked into the formulas a bit. Yeah, you did a number here. This is pretty awesome.
Yes. Yeah, I did take a picture of like the map that I did. I think I posted it at some point in Discord if you could find it. There was it took a little bit to, I guess work out just the base formula. When I did it for speed, I did it specifically for speed using numbers the whole time. But for the rest of this, I needed to come up with a faster process, and that required just coming up with the formula using only variables. So I did a whole bunch of algebra to figure out what that should be. And, once I had that, it was off to the races to get all these made. So, but yeah, like I don't expect it to change much. If we do change it, though, it would show up in the update notes. So I guess
Perfect.
just be on the lookout.
I feel like it brings some balance to the game too, with comparing heroes to average. Whether you're mid, high, low, it helps normalize some of the game, and I think from your perspective, Hubert, it should make balancing things a little easier. Like whether people are trying to use really underpowered, weaker heroes that are high level, or overpowered, greater stone, greater crystal forever. It should help normalize some of the way that you're going to then balance the attack power of abilities.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I don't know if you noticed, but there is a diminishing
Right,
returns
I did.
column there. So, yeah, we did like in order for this scale to be comfortable for like most heroes, because there is the extreme case where a hero gets everything it could possibly want in a stat every single level, right? Where it's been fully buffed with stones, and every crystal, like, or whatever, it doesn't, crystal or not, like, they get both of the two stats per level, and they're always putting the bonus in there per level. If they're mythic, they get +4 in that stat every 5 levels. Um,
There's a mythic thief with 86 luck, and I did the math on it, and I'm like, he didn't miss he didn't miss, and he got more than one rarity buff to
yeah.
get that average. Like, I was like, holy smokes, that's good. So yeah, I sorry to interrupt. There are heroes out there that has happened to.
Right. Yeah. And so if there weren't diminishing returns, then either we had to have the scale like fully account for them, and then that makes it so, because they're such an outlier, it just kind of squishes everyone else down. So rather than doing that, kind of set a point where there would be diminishing returns, and those heroes would be into that diminishing return realm, but they still might get like, they might be at what point? Let's see, this is doing it by, like, it does at point 1, for example, on those, so they might get up to like 0.15 or something like that, based on like that thief with that luck may be able to have something that high. Like,
Yeah.
even though there are diminishing returns, they'll still will continue to see that benefit. And plus, there's other formulas as well that are not using this, so where it is just like straight luck is into the formula. So
Yeah. I'm hearing still good, but not busted.
yeah, that was the attempt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Um, let's see what else. That was about all the equipment changes or equipment conversation items I had. Nindorf, anything else you had? Oh yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
I think that covers it
You
pretty
had a
good for
question
me.
that I breezed over. I'm glad you sent it to me ahead of time. Will there be equipment that boosts profession quests in the future?
Oh yes.
That is a touchy subject.
Oh.
So I don't know if you guys noticed, but when we added pets to like pet bonuses, that was a pretty big increase in the amount of gas that was spent per quest. Um, and if we were to add more, like every equipment slot could potentially add bonuses, that means we have to check each of those NFTs and what's equipped and whatnot. So there is a pretty high gas burden attached to doing that. Um, so I am leery of it. I'm not going to say that it's not going to happen, but I am generally not a fan of the idea. Just for the reasons of like efficiency and the amount of work that just goes into like programming the logic of checking every weapon, and then we have to identify this value means this bonus, and this value means that bonus, and that value means this bonus. Like, we have so many for the pet already that there's a big logic tree in the contract that goes through and just, is it this bonus? No, 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 no. Okay, it's this one. All right,
Hmm.
this one needs to do this thing. Like for every weapon, every armor, everything for each bonus that we add, we have to add another thing to that tree, or like a whole separate tree. So it's a lot. It's a lot. It adds a lot to the code. So I'm generally afraid of doing that just for that reason, the complexity and like how much extra work it creates for us. It's definitely not a trivial thing to do. So I think something that if we were to do, hopefully it's when we have a lot of these other things that we want to get done, behind us, and it's like, okay, now we have more breathing room to do, more, just expand the breadth of what we already have. And maybe when we get to that point, we can start thinking about it, but I don't want to do it anytime soon,
Hmm.
for sure.
No fishing waders. Check. All right.
I mean, that'd
Damn
be
it.
nice. It
We
would be
needed
cool
more
to have.
pants. We needed more
Right.
pants. Damn.
There's always the future.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you sharing the complexity of it. That's something that I wouldn't have thought of. And I frankly, I love the idea. But understanding the complexity, it's like, well, yeah, I'd rather have a lot of other features besides that, and I don't need more ragweed right now. either.
Right.
So that's okay. So thank you for kind of sharing that detail.
Yep.
I guess the last item that really I have for the night, and maybe a time for if you're on YouTube listening still, thank you for hanging out with us. Drop a few questions in. We'll take one or two before we go. Last question I had for the night on reckless speculation, to dive into Guild Wars a little more. I know that's we're talking way a ways out. We need more PVE than PvP, than land, than utility. But is that something that you're still thinking of? A way for guilds to compete against each other, whether it's leaderboards or like actually like I could go challenge Starbucks super awesome explosion and toxic monsters that he's created.
I don't want to say too much because again, that is so far out into the future, but I think it would be cool if we did have, a way for guilds to challenge each other, either them being like in some organized format of tournaments or having some kind of, as you mentioned, like King of the Hill aspect where perhaps there's a given resource somewhere out there and it can be controlled, but the control of that needs to be defended. I think there's room for us to do things like that, but things like that also would require a good amount of work to actually create. So when we get to that point of having guilds and then how we want to set them up to be able to interact with the game world, I expect we'll start out more simple and then kind of iterate from there. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the future there was some degree of guilds competing with each other in some way or another.
Okay, that's good to hear. All right, the YouTube team out there is showing up in great fashion here. I can't keep this question down any longer, Hubert. I know you didn't want to answer it, but you might have to. The growing pressure. Can Hubert comment on the new hero deflationary mechanism that has been alluded to, but there's no specific yet?
I will just say thank you to Burr for being my analysis minion on this. It's something that has been cooking for quite a while, and it's also something that I have not really been able to devote too much attention to besides when he and I are catching up on what he's done for the week. So a lot of the heavy lifting was done by him, and I'm very happy with how it's been shaping up, and we're getting to a point now with it where uh, we're going to. It's about time for me to kind of put together a presentation for tokenomics committee to kind of go over, and then assuming it gets the thumbs up there, then it gets a little bit closer as far as like being something that we can talk about in detail. And I'm really excited for it. It's big. It's not a small thing, and it should be pretty impactful to the game as a whole. But I don't want to say more than that.
So maybe generically speaking, are you talking like large as in impact or large as in development?
Development actually shouldn't be too bad. I mean, it changes things that already exist. So there would be changes that need to happen. And some of those things require additional tracking that we don't do right now. So there is a pretty decent amount of lift there. But what I meant by big is more just how it would impact what the DFK experience is and what you're able to do within it. I think will be uh, pretty dramatically changed by this. And yeah.
Did I would say did the impact dark summoning have on the game impact how you chose to go with this feature?
To an extent, yeah. I think there are things about, you know, at the time when we designed dark summoning and whatnot, where uh, I I wish I had spent more time on it. There were a few things that I think we could have done better. So I think there will be part of this addresses some of those pain points. Um, but it is also kind of a different thing entirely compared to what dark summoning is.
Okay.
Does dark summoning go away?
No.
All right. Okay.
Narrowing in. Warmer.
All right.
Warmer.
We'll keep trying.
Will pets be dying as a part of this?
Probably not initially, but
Okay.
there's an avenue where that may be the case.
Whoa. Okay. All right. All right. This is. Oh man, this is just giving me kind of goosebumps. Um. Okay. Mellow Green Giant asked, and I'm not quite sure I fully comprehend this question, so I'm going to bring up the equipment page here again. But he's saying, um, will a hero be able to get the benefits of a subclass passive ability while equipping a weapon not for that class?
Oof.
For a passive, I would say generally yes is the plan, but we haven't programmed it yet, so that could change. But
So
generally, I think passives would be yes, unless there's something specific about it, like how it works, where it just isn't compatible. So I think we might need there may be cases like that. I'm not sure, but as long as if it's something that's just like, oh, your healing is increased by 20%,
mm-hmm.
if you're like a seer priest, I think that bonus would apply even if you didn't have that. So, but I think that also is probably a bad example because those two classes share, I think, the same weapon, or actually maybe not. Yeah. Anyway, generally yes, passives would work without having the subclass weapon equipped.
Okay. All right.
So I kind of went into ramble thought mode there.
All good.
Last question here for the night. Eric's asking, I think this is a kind of a good one to dive into. Not when will PJ LAN tournaments be, but how will they manifest? Is that going to be like PvP that allows and unlocks LAN tournaments to exist with the tournament system that you've been thinking about creating, Hubert? Or is that a different way for how will the tournaments function?
Yeah, so I mean, things have evolved a lot since back then. That we did have, like as far as like the Eternal Pages went, like the majority of the individuals involved with that design are no longer with the team now. So, that does. I know the pages feel like this kind of leftover thing that we're ignoring, and we're not, but we're definitely not prioritizing it at the same time. Um, but I guess in the process of where we went and kind of the things we had to prioritize from then up until now. Initially, I was thinking tournaments would work kind of like how kind of use a system similar to how training quests are set up, where you have like a chance to win based on what your stat is compared to your opponent's stat, and it just being kind of this random thing that runs in the contract. Now at this point, we do have combat in place, but we don't have enough classes yet to really have a good PvP offering. But depending on when we actually are ready to have those tournaments take place, it could end up just being straight up combat, where it would be PvP, and people would have to just submit their teams for that and go into the tournaments, and win that way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that will be how it ends up. We could end up with it being something that's more aligned with what the initial plan was. It really is just a matter of timing, and I think at this point, with how we've been prioritizing things, the PvP, like having it be actual combat, is a high likelihood. Just because I really don't see those tournaments happening soon.
Awesome.
So yeah.
That's nice to know kind of what to expect. And I think it's definitely not a when question and more a what question. So that's good.
Right.
Well, thank you, Hubert, so much for your time tonight. We've kept you about an hour and a half. and welcome back from vacation. I hope it was relaxing and has you set up and geared in and ready to go, because it feels like we're through the doldrums of the bear market. And I know I'm speaking for the community here. We're so appreciative that you guys decided to stick it through, and you guys had the capability of doing that. That had to have required an incredible amount of fortitude, as well as hard work. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for saying all that. It has definitely been a challenge this past year, or I mean, I guess more than a year. Well, maybe. Yeah, I guess it's been what, 2 years now, maybe, since that really started getting bad. But
Right.
yeah, no, there have been a lot of. eh, you kind of get I get a thousand-mile stare when I start thinking about all the stuff that has happened over this time, you know. So I too am glad that we've made it this far, and I too feel like we have reached a point with the release of Void Hunts to where we can, you know, we've been able to show what we're capable of creating, and it seems that people are liking it.
Oh yeah.
You know, that gives us a lot of motivation to, you know, keep on trucking, and you know, with the recent events, I guess I'll say, as far as like interest in the project, I think that also has been, you know, a good sign for us, because you know, we have been running on life support for a while. As far as, I don't know, that probably sounds bad to say, but you know, we aren't running at full capacity right now. We just by necessity, and we've been able to manage that, and we're maintaining that, and I think we could continue to maintain that, but it does mean that we're going slower than we could be going, and you know, that our team is smaller than it could be if we were in better conditions. So,
Right.
you know, I look forward to a future where that starts to go away, and we start to, you know, be able to be running on all cylinders, because I think that's where we need to be for kind of the grand vision of all of this, just to get it all out, because otherwise it just, you know, the next Void Hunt will come out, and then it's like, okay, we're going to do the next PvE thing, you know, and in between those times it still could be months, you know, in between, just with what we can do with our one beetle dude who's doing all of the combat engine programming, and you know,
Wow.
like,
Wow.
so it's you know, if we could get him a helper, we have also typical, but we have typical basically handling everything else while beetle dude just does combat. So and Zipper has kind of stepped up as well, him being, you know, a professor of history, and yet he has become a front end developer as well. So he's a man
What a
of many
man of,
talents.
yeah.
Yeah,
What a crazy man of many talents.
yeah,
Seems like you guys are all wearing a lot of hats and as many as it takes, really.
yeah. No, like, everyone on the team is extremely talented, and I think, you know, those that are here now are very dedicated to the project, and I'm very happy that I get to work with them every day. It's been great, and you know, it's just. I'm feeling great for the future, you know, with how things have been going. It gives me a lot of hope. The vacation was really nice as well, just to kind of step away for a minute, even though I really didn't. But
Right.
I still had Slack. I still had the internet, so I was paying attention every day to work. But you know, I went to Japan. It was nice. My wife hadn't been back in a long time. I hadn't been back even longer, and so it was just really good to be able to go back to, kind of both of our roots in a way. I mean,
That's
I'm
awesome.
not Japanese, but Japan really feels like a home to me. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, very good.
yeah.
Neindorf, any closing comments for you?
No, just yeah, appreciate you having me on, and um, we'll have to we'll have to keep in touch, and we'll see if, you know, once we get some more of these awesome features we discussed out, I'm sure we'll have more to pick your brain about.
I am sure you will, and yeah,
Yeah.
just let me know.
All right. Well, thank you, Hubert. Thank you, DeFi Kingdoms, and thank you, amazing community out there in chat tonight. Hope you enjoyed this alpha as much as we did. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.